We're live. Welcome back, everybody. Second stream of the day. Just tweeted the link out here. Let me tweet the Twitter link. I'm just so excited about FlexNet and the future HEX that I had to stream twice today. Just tweeted the link. What's up, everybody? What a time. It truly feels like December of 2020 is kind of how this feels. If you remember back then, there are a couple of just, kind of similar to what we have now, where there was a bullish catalyst that came from within HEX, and then there was a bullish catalyst that came from just kind of like external to HEX, just by being on the right network. The one internal to HEX that was happening in December of 2020 was that days before, at the end of November of 2020, the HEX day-on-day inflation cut by about 90%. And so there's a massive reduction in inflation. And that's really what enabled the massive upside that we saw in 2021 to happen. Between that and a big wave of DeFi innovation that unlocked a lot of trading activity on Ethereum, and all markets were basically bananas. So combination of an instance where the supply was massively reduced, and then the Ethereum just tailwinds that allowed for HEX to thrive. That's what really helped HEX become one of the top performing assets of the 2021 cycle. And something that kind of, I think, was what pushed it from like 20 to 50 cents was really like leading up to Pulse Chain. At the time, it seemed like Pulse Chain was a real solution to HEX, and it was going to be a real big catalyst for HEX. And so the lead up to that is what caused a lot of the upside. But now that we've that was 4 years ago now, and now that we've kind of experienced how things are, kind of the equivalent to that is that right now, there's a lot of major innovation going on in Ethereum in the L2 space, billions of dollars of infrastructure, and they're also trying to grow the L1 as well. So a growing L1 helps L2s. Growing L2s help the L1. It's kind of like, this big wave that's been in motion for a long time. It's kind of, it's really come to fruition over the last, I'd say, year or two. There's been billions of dollars of infrastructure development to support this type of thing. And one of the innovations that has occurred is what FlexNet is leveraging, where you can have an L2 that is that uses any token as the gas fee token. And so in this case with FlexNet, we're using HEX on Ethereum as the gas token on the network. So kind of similar to like, what late 2020 to early 2021 felt like, big bullish catalysts, big reduction in inflation, and, the hope for new use cases in, sorry, I have to like reset my focus. God, that's so weird. This autofocus, maybe I should turn off the autofocus. This was bothering me earlier. There. Okay, that should be fine. So yeah, big bullish catalysts all happening at the same time. It kind of feels like how it did in late 2020. If you're around, you know what I'm talking about. So far, I mean, today was a really big day for FlexNet in general, because the way we're rolling this out is that we're kind of just starting with, right now it's been basically like a week and a half of just talking about FlexNet, sharing, answering questions, getting ready for testnet deployment. We were going to deploy the testnet on Friday, but some people had earnestly requested that we leave the angel round for the FlexNet ownership units, which is a $50 per unit rate they earnestly asked if we could leave it open until Monday. And so, there's really no big difference between that. So the testnet is going to roll out on Monday. And then we'll continue to get things ready for the mainnet deployment. The mainnet is going to launch with a new type of DEX called FlexDEX. It's more than just a DEX; it's really like a new type of token standard that if you can imagine a normal ERC20 token, if it had a built-in launch pad that helped to de-risk the act of trading the coin, and also a built-in liquidity pool that helps to really smooth out the user experience for trading the token. So solving some big problems with FlexDEX as like a token standard. I think that's really serious. I mean, that could launch on its own and be a breakthrough success. It's been in the works for a while. The original name was Bounce.fun. And I kind of put it on pause for a little bit because it just felt like the kind of shit ticker game was a little bit exhausted, kind of a couple months ago. But it feels like it's starting to pick back up. And that's a key volume driver as well. So for bootstrapping a new network, having something that is just going to attract a lot of volume, that's pretty critical. And because a couple months ago, I've started to explore other areas of just different formats for speculation on chain. So we saw a quantum raffle like that. With that, there was about $30,000 of prizes distributed through quantum raffle. So I'd kind of paused this concept of the singleton contract that captures token, launchpad, and DEX. To explore some other kind of alternative formats for speculation. But I think that with the launch of a new network, that it's like you obviously need a DEX, and so FlexDEX being the kind of the hallmark DEX to launch with, that's really important. So that's what it's going to launch with. And in addition to that, there's also a handful of projects that want to deploy on FlexNet. As soon as people have reached out saying they want to do it. We'll talk the specific ones kind of as that's more closer to, because I don't want to suggest that something's coming if it for some reason it doesn't. But a lot of people have reached out. A lot of people are really interested in this concept of using HEX as the gas token on a new network, and compared to a lot of other L2s, like the only users of the L2 are the VCs who purchased all the coins. And this is pretty different, where it's starting with a massive community of people already who are already multi-chain users. Everyone who uses HEX also uses Pulse Chain, and many people also use Base, and many people also use Solana. So these are already users who are used to this kind of multi-chain world that we're in. And so the immediate addressable market is quite big compared to other L2s. So I think that this can really help HEX stand out as being, part of the Ethereum ecosystem. I mean, that's where it came from. That's where it was born. And, I think that had Pulse Chain been a larger success by now, maybe there wouldn't be such the desire to, try to be a serious player in the Ethereum industry. But I think that it is quite important to be part of the action, because that's where the on-ramps are. That's the source of new users. And so I think that this can help to introduce HEX to people who may have had negative opinions about it in the past, but introduce it in a new context that they may be more supportive of. So I think that this is a really big opportunity to propel HEX into the future, leverage some of the big innovations that have happened in the Ethereum L2 space, and just bring new life to the asset that's really been on the negative receiving end of kind of what Pulse Chain is. And that's kind of in general, I feel like that is just a strong kind of asset allocation strategy in general. When all of the immediately addressable market has kind of shifted in one direction, and there's signs of that momentum having been exhausted, then you kind of zig when they zag. And so Hex on Ethereum has, it's the only coin in the ecosystem that has actually experienced a full Wyckoff distribution cycle. That's where there's markup, distribution, markdown, accumulation. It's just kind of a natural cycle that markets follow. It's the only one that's actually completed the whole cycle, because all the other assets, they all started at a fixed price, and there was really no price discovery that took the Pulse and the Pulse X prices to 0.0001. So that's part to explain why it's been such a tough market for those coins, is because there just wasn't any price discovery. All the coins were just issued at a fixed rate, and the majority of them were actually issued by converting HEX, which was basically burnt into them. So what would have been resistance on the HEX chart has actually converted into resistance on the Pulse and Pulse X chart. So for those economic reasons is why I'm focused on HEX on Ethereum. And there's no persuasive argument against it. There's weak appeals to authority, which is just like a sign of mental weakness. So you can't really rely on that. And there's really HEX on Ethereum is the one that's most primed for high performance. And so that's why FlexNet is based on that. Parlay from far away says, "Sup, one thing I notice is that Tonto always stays active. Can't hate on that." Yeah, this is what I love to do. This is my passion, and I have an awesome time doing this. What's the utility on this protocol? So it is a high performance network powered by HEX. So there is an awesome new token and DEX standard that's launching with it, and a culture of innovation. We're really trying to bring back that culture of innovation that HEX had. I'd say in the year 2022, there was a lot of innovation around HEX. And since then, there kind of really hasn't been that much. So we're trying to bring back that culture of innovation and leverage this network and leverage HEX as an asset and the Hexicans as a community as a way to unlock what is the next crypto meta trend. Every cycle, there's a new format for high risk speculation that captivates the world, basically. It went from ICOs to DeFi protocols to NFTs to meme coins. And so, what is next? What is the next format for high risk speculation? So by, having kind of bringing that together, a culture of innovation plus a network of risk takers and long-term thinkers, and then developer support, that through there, I think that we can unlock what that next big innovation is and the next big meta trend in the crypto space. Main thing. Yeah, I mean, so who knows what's going to actually launch on it? That's going to be basically what my life will consist of, is raising funds to promote and grow the network and supporting developers to build on the network. And so, it starts with FlexTex. I mean, FlexTex really is a big innovation. But, it doesn't need to be my stuff that is the big thing on FlexNet. And that's kind of, I've really tried to look at just the different incentive structures and just kind of how Pulse Chain operates to try to learn from that. And the way that there's really not any type of developer support, there's really more developer opposition. I think that's rooted in just a core misalignment, which I really don't know how it ever gets solved. And that's the misalignment between the Pulse and Pulse X sacrifice investors and then the builders of other things on the network. Because it's like on its own isolated L1, there's a finite amount of inbound capital that provides value to everything on the network. And so anyone experiencing gains in things that aren't Pulse or PulseX kind of comes at the Pulse and PulseX's expense. And so because there was so much participation in that, there was so much demand absorbed, and there was so much such a high cost basis from users. There's like a huge misalignment between kind of like Pulse specifically is like the coin that is like the network and everything else. And I think that puts Richard kind of in a situation where it's like you never see him supporting anything. And I think that's a big problem. You look at how other networks operate, and the people that are in charge of that, they hire serious professionals whose core job it is to build relationships with developers, provide support, provide funding. Like there's just like a whole different strategy that other chains utilize, which is why you see other chains having massive success. And so that's one thing in particular that I really want to drive forward with this is, a culture of innovation that's backed up by real, hands-on support. Because by now it's like I've been building and launching on-chain products for years, and even off-chain products. And these things have done hundreds of millions of dollars of business. We've seen what works. We've seen what doesn't work. We've done it all. And so I feel like that's a strong alignment with my natural desires and the skills and experience that I've built up over the last couple of years. If I can be in a position where I am, every day trying to support builders on the ecosystem, I think that's a very valuable use of what I bring forth. So that's really what FlexNet is about. Because at this point, it's like every chain is fast and cheap. So like things like that, like don't even matter. It's really about the perceived opportunity that's taking place on the chain that comes from fostering innovation and unlocking like what the next big thing is. And that's, that comes from, supporting builders, helping them get to market, and then being a soundbox for them. Why don't we look at the FlexNet website just for people who are new? I know many of you may have already seen all this and you already know what's going on, but I'm doing this at a time zone or a time period I don't usually stream from. So if you are just now watching for the first time, yeah, let's open this up. So this is FlexNet. Check out the site, flexnet.tech, if you want to learn more. So FlexNet's an L2 rollup built on the Conduit stack, which enables tight integration with the broader Ethereum L2 ecosystem infrastructure and the use of wrapped HEX as the native gas token. So that's a really big deal, is that there's been so much infrastructure developed to support these L2s that we can now leverage that in a very easy way. This is battle tested stuff, nothing new here. So it's like an easy, simple, direct way to unlock new use cases for HEX. So why FlexNet? Culture of innovation. We want to help you invent or invest in the next breakthrough meta trend. And it's achieved through a professional incubation team who serves the FlexNet builder ecosystem. It's powered by HEX, and that's through a mechanism where There's a token called Flex, which is always backed and redeemable 1-to-1 in both directions with HEX on Ethereum. And then Flex is the token that's actually the gas token. And that's because there are some things that you have to wrap it in a way that makes the token compatible to be a gas token. And one of those things is it comes down to the number of places after the decimal that HEX has. HEX has 8 places after the decimal. EVM chains expect 18 decimal points. And so it just basically pads the end with zeros. That's really all it is. So because it's always backed 1-to-1 with HEX, Flex and HEX will basically just be an extension of each other. It's built on Conduit, so leveraging the Conduit rollup stack for world-class network infrastructure with everything you need, such as bridges, block explorers, on-ramps, and subgraph indexing, all just baked in. So why HEX? It's already got a huge user base. So a lot of L2s, they launch with a new token, and that's just hard to drive demand for anything. And so doing that, I think would just kind of take away from this effort to launch a new coin. And so launching a coin that already has independent value, like already makes this more likely to succeed. Because it provides that immediate network effect. And then, HEX has massive growth potential. A couple major bullish catalysts recently, and I think it's really set up for explosive growth. And then with the way FlexDex, the native liquidity system works, is that basically a lot of HEX is going to effectively be burnt through the system. So, and because the prices of those assets issued through FlexDex are bound to HEX, growth in HEX, which we already think is high likelihood, that gets to trickle out to the other assets. Let's talk more about that. I mean, really, I think this is actually a good thing to really emphasize here, is that there's a vibrant HEX community, over 100,000 members worldwide. The HEX community has been at the forefront of decentralized finance innovation since 2019. HEX is really the category creator in the yield generating asset space. DEX pioneer, this was the first major use case of Uniswap, helping to popularize decentralized exchanges. It was one of the top performing assets of the 2020 crypto market cycle. And a massive community was formed centered around delayed gratification and long-term value creation. The HEX community is united around several core principles: long-term vision, community engagement with active participation in content creation, meetups, and ecosystem projects, educational forces, huge emphasis on learning and understanding the technology, tokenomics, game theory, etc. Global reach, 6 continents, dozens of countries. It's truly global. This is a global phenomena. And then there's a big synergy created with this. Immediate network effect, long-term alignment, technical understanding, like these people already understand multi-chain activity, and then this value transfer through that 1-to-1 bonding between Flex and HEX. So let's talk about FlexDex. Again, it's a new token standard that brings together the launchpad mechanism and the DEX onto the token contract. Comes with fair launch distribution, built-in liquidity pool, and something called a price floor. It's also sniper proof. The way it launches and distributes the initial supply prevents just the first big buyer from capturing all the supply, which is a big deal. And then it launches with this liquidity bootstrapping phase, which is what creates the liquidity pool and the price floor. So the price floor, it's a new way to think about buy and burn of a token, because instead of market buying and burn, which can be targeted by people who are trading against a pre-programmed non-organic source of demand, which is a market buy and burn, Doing a limit order buy and burn is actually a much more effective way to do that. And doing the limit order buy and burn at a price level that can purchase back all of the supply is actually a really powerful concept, because it creates a minimum possible price that the coin can go to. And based on the like standard configuration of FlexDex, that comes out to about 25% from the mint rate. So if you participate in the minting of a token that launches on FlexDex, your max possible loss is 25%. Whereas if you participate in any other launch, your max possible loss, unless you're the first buyer, is potentially 100%. And so rather than the first person to exit capturing most of the liquidity available, this helps to make it so that more people can capture liquidity, and it helps things kind of unwind in a more fair way. Because like, at this point, like there's literally so many tokens, it's impossible for all of them to maintain value. That's not a reason not to speculate on them, but this just like helps users unwind with less risk of total loss, basically. And so limiting downside risk has the effect of amplifying upside potential, because if everyone knows that they have a max or a minimum possible, or they have a max possible loss, then maybe they're willing to put a lot more into these types of coins. And that can really introduce a lot of volatility and volume. So the price floor is a big deal. And so this being launched on FlexNet, hopefully that can bring a lot of attention to this new type of token model, and any demand that is for tokens traded on FlexDex. That demand kind of gets routed through HEX first, and it creates a system where a lot of HEX is burnt. So FlexDex is a big deal. Like this price floor, that's really the secret sauce. It also has a built-in liquidity pool with limit orders. That I think solves more like user-facing, user experience problems, because you don't have to do any of the approval steps, because you can just buy or sell directly to the token contract. So that's an awesome aspect of it as well. But really, the secret sauce is this price floor, because of risk mitigation, fair unwinding of coins that just don't take off. And it also creates this new type of trade where you can basically have a risk-free trade. If you were to buy slightly above the price floor, your max downside is the difference between your purchase price and the price floor rate. And if you bought slightly above, like say the price floor is at $1, just for ease of thinking, say you bought at $1.01, your max loss is 1 cent. But your max gain is infinite. Like these things there's nothing that caps the upside. There's only things that cap the downside. So this risk-free trade premise can introduce a lot of probably community takeovers of coins. Like if coins, when coins kind of run their course, and then new people kind of step in and create their own narratives and create their own experience. That's what can happen with this, like this risk-free trade premise with the price floor. So like this alone is a reason to get involved in FlexNet, is the price floor mechanism with FlexDex. That's a big deal to me. So let's talk about the ownership opportunity. So to do this right, there's got to be an operating budget, like no way around it. Kind of a wasted opportunity with Pulse Chain is that there was $650 million of cash raised, which has basically been squandered, unfortunately. And so, right now, and really potentially, all the time, there will be ways for people to acquire what are called FlexNet ownership units. And so these ownership units are non-transferable NFTs that give you access to 4 different income streams related to ecosystem growth. So sequencer fees, for instance, Coinbase earned something like $120 million as the sequencer for Base L2. I mean, Base is massive, so that makes sense why they earn so much. But that's one of the fee sources. Second is the FlexDex LP fees. Part of every FlexDex token has part of the liquidity is locked permanently, and so the fee from that goes to the FlexNet owners. So buying these ownership units is a way to get exposure to every token launched on FlexDex, and every token has a price floor. So it's not like you're getting exposure to a bunch of coins that are all going to go to zero. You're getting exposure to coins that have some minimum value that you can capture from that, which is the price floor. So very, very, that's a big deal. That's probably realistically, this will probably be the big revenue driver, is the FlexDex LP fees. And then, things that are kind of more moonshot, like there can be revenues from certain incubator projects that we kind of bring into the mix. And then also to align everyone who holds these ownership units with the goals to continue to raise funds to be able to continue growing out this ecosystem. Whenever there's like a new round of funding, people who are existing owners are going to get a bonus for that success. So, so right now it's currently in the angel phase, angel round. $50 per unit. There were 10,000 available. About 2,074 of them have been sold so far. I think that's. Here, let's just take a look at the value. Oh my God, my Twitter account's been locked. That was weird. That is so weird. My Twitter account is like locked right now. Let me resolve this so we don't. So that's that'd be. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have Twitter. Okay, we're back. What the heck? Okay. So what I was looking at when I saw that I was banned from Twitter, so far about $138,000 has been raised to launch and operate FlexNet from about, let's see how many users participated. Yeah, so $138,000 from about 112 users. So that's awesome. And so this rate will go up on Monday to $100 per unit. So, and that'll be once the testnet phase is live, and that's just to account for the risk. Because right now, this is just vaporware, right? Like it's a, just an idea, even though it's a lot further than just an idea. It's not on testnet yet, so it should be a lower price than once it is on testnet, and then once it's on mainnet, it should be a higher price than testnet. So, so you can get these now. You just go to flexnet.tech/ownership to purchase these units. So some key information: the max total supply of these units ever is going to be 100,000 of them. So right now, only 10,000 are available, and then more are going to become unlocked, through each round. But leftover ones are going to be just there for future fundraising efforts, and also to be able to compensate people for outstanding contributions to the network, or to maybe grease the wheel on certain partnerships, or maybe given out as sweepstakes prizes, like what we're doing now, where if you buy these NFTs, we're going to make a couple drawings, and there are going to be 6 prize winners, and they're going to get some bonuses. So really, they can be used for anything, but mainly as a fundraising mechanism, because that's really what can allow this to thrive, is really effective fundraising. So I think we've done a pretty good. I mean, 138K in just over a week and a half. I'm quite proud of that. It's more than I thought, truly. So, um, so they start as non-transferable NFTs, but at some point they will convert to a liquid token. That's mainly to just ensure alignment with the people who are contributing to this and the network. We don't want this to have to compete with everything else on the network for liquidity and demand. Um, and so that's where kind of this fundraising bonus comes in, is that if you since these are non-transferable, and if prices of the units are going up per each fundraising round, then capturing this fundraising bonus is kind of equivalent to selling when price goes up a little bit, like DCAing out of something, except you're not selling because you still keep your units. But that's all just in the sake of alignment. So roadmap, kind of where we're at. So started working on this concept, a couple months ago. And then now we're, launching the ownership unit cells, getting the bridge situated, and finishing up FlexHEX. Coming soon, we're launching the testnet, get things like Block Explorer and the various developer tools situated, deploy FlexDex on testnet, and then mainnet launch. This says Q3, but realistically, this could happen in 4 weeks at the earliest, and maybe 6 weeks is more realistic. So, yeah, this is what's happening. I'm still here for the tech. Send 4 ETH and I will unlock it. it was unlocked, so unfortunately, when marketing team. Yeah, soon, very soon. Let's talk bonuses. Yeah, so I mean, kind of discretionary, right? The one in particular with the kind of sweepstakes that I tweeted about today. Basically, so you can mint as many of these as you want. Each one has an ID number. What we're going to do is we're going to draw 6. We're going to use Chainlink to generate 6 random numbers, and those 6 random numbers are going to be they're going to select the winner. And so the first winner is going to be what they're going to get is they're going to get their ownership units doubled. So one lucky person who participates in the angel round is going to effectively get theirs at $25 per unit. Is basically what, just one lucky person, it's not, you can kind of sway your odds by participating large. But of course that comes with larger risk. So that's the first one, is that, so there's someone who's going to get basically twice as much as what they bought just by being lucky. And then there's going to be 5 other rewards. So one person is going to double their ownership units. 2 people are going to get 50% more units. And then 3 people are going to get 25% more units. So not too crazy. Currently the largest person I think has 260 units. And so if they bought, they could get max, would that be 520? So those are the ones currently up for grabs now. So just go to flexnet.tech/ownership to participate in this if you choose to. Yeah, pretty wild. It's kind of I think that's a good fair one because it's feasible, because once you win one, you that same address can't win. So if you get yours doubled, you can't win the others. So six out of, I mean, right, say it stopped right now, say no more deposits. There's like what, 112 people that have participated in this. 6 out of 112 is like, just under 6%. So if you had a 6% chance of getting a boost, that's kind of high actually. So that'll be fun. Let's check out TradingView. Let's look at HEX. Okay, that is not the most up-to-date chart. Let's see what is. Probably this one. Yeah. Let's add an indicator. If I'd only. All right, let's change this to the daily. Actually, let's change it to the weekly. So this is where we're at. There have been kind of three unique waves of the dip catcher algorithm on the default settings. Signaling bottom, it's kind of rounded out these bottoms. And the latest one was when the price was about 50% lower. It's crazy to win up 6x off the low, then back to 2x. So, I mean, this chart doesn't, like, it looks pretty good actually, right? I mean, that looks like something that wants to go back up. And so with flexnet happening, there's a real chance that it experiences some moves to the upside, because there's finally a new reason to buy HEX. And with the rates being slashed, not only does that cut the inflation, but probably more importantly, it it reduces what is the risk-free rate in HEX, and that unleashes a bunch of new innovation. So, for instance, when the Federal Reserve is in low rate environment policy, it actually forces a lot more funds to be invested, because if you're only capturing like 1 or 2% annual yield from the risk-free activity, which is just holding treasuries, then you start moving up the risk profile and start investing in stuff, and that's what drives innovation, is investment. And so when rates are high, then things kind of contract a little bit, because there's less reason to invest in stuff because you can capture 4 or 5% annually. So now that the HEX yield is very low, it actually unlocks a whole new wave of potential innovations, because now, like, it's like it used to be harder to if you're measuring your performance solely in HEX, to deliver 11% in 1 year, or 30% annually for a max length stake, that's quite difficult to do. But now that it's much lower, there's more of a chance, and so I think that's going to drive a lot of innovation. So that timing with FlexNet is actually really perfect. Combined with it already experiencing its big downside, and so it's kind of a big deal. Well, anyways, I'm gonna hop off now. I'm glad you guys were here to join me. If you have any questions, just reach out to me on Twitter, and then we'll keep this thing moving. Have fun, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.